Welcome back to Hardware Unboxed. Today I finally get to show you a build project that I've been planning for well over a month now, and I'm extremely excited about it. This is something I've been looking forward to getting into for quite some time now, and well, this is the first installment where I'm just going to show you all the products, all the hardware that will be going into this build, sort of discuss my plans and explain how the build has come together. Now, the title will probably make mention of the Ryzen 9 3950X because, well, first of all, this build will end up with the 3950X in it, and B, this build is mostly happening because of the 3950X. From the moment AMD first announced that there would be a 16-core mainstream processor on the AM4 platform, I've been planning a build like this. Back in June, we didn't actually know when the 3950X would hit shelves. We just knew that it was a thing, it was coming at some point in time, and this led Tim and myself to guess as to when it would actually end up arriving, and we guessed that you probably wouldn't see it till early 2020, and that guess has now been proven wrong, or at least we think it has. Shortly after Computex, we did learn that it would be coming sooner than that, though the original launch date, which was set for September, has now been pushed back till sometime next month. That being the case, this build project was meant to begin in early September, but due to a last-minute decision from AMD to push back the 3950X release till next month, sometime in November, I've delayed revealing my build plans until now. So just to be clear, I don't have a 3950X processor just yet, but I also don't believe the title is clickbait, because whether or not I had a 3950X right now wouldn't change this video, and it obviously wouldn't change my plans. This build will have a 3950X in it. I am making this build just for the 3950X. Pretty much that's what's happening. So it will have a 3950X in it. I imagine by probably the third installment in this series, we'll be dropping a 3950X into the AM4 socket, and then we'll be finishing off, topping up the loop with some liquid and running some tests. When all is said and done, this really will be the ultimate Ryzen 9 3950X build, and I'm going to show you why now. I'll just remove some of this hardware because I can't really look at anything with all this in front of me. So we'll just pop this stuff down and I will show you. I think I'll start with the motherboard. So yeah, not only are we going to have a $750 US 16-core processor, but that processor will be installed, on, hopefully the radiator's okay, on a $1,000 motherboard. And this is the ASRock Aqua. And this motherboard was actually meant to be released alongside the 3950X, but due to delays on AMD's side, which we've already discussed, the Aqua has arrived a bit earlier. One thing I should probably get out of the way first, though, is that this is a $1,000 US AM4 motherboard. And does a $1,000 AM4 motherboard really make sense? Well, I think it's fair to say no, not really, but even so, that hasn't stopped people buying up this limited edition board. I've heard from a few retailers that got boards in it, they sold straight away, so bit of a popular item. I suppose you'll see why in a moment. It is quite an impressive looking board. And I think if I had really deep pockets and I wasn't going with Threadripper for some reason, I'd probably be looking at something like this. But yeah, as I said, doesn't really make sense on the AM4 platform, but it is still really, really cool. And one thing that is really, really cool about this board, I'll probably show you some B-roll because that'll be the easiest way to show it off, but here's opening up the box. And I'll just pop this out. Actually, I better not drop the board. It is extremely heavy. One thing that's really, really cool, come on, oh, it's so heavy, is down the bottom there, it says Hardware Unboxed. So you can, well, I'll show B-roll of it. But yeah, your board won't necessarily have that. You'll have the build version, whether it's, you know, some number between 1 and 999. So not your name, but again, still very cool. It's an amazing looking motherboard, and yeah, looks are subjective, but come on, this is hands down the best looking X570 board out there. Oh, and before I continue to gush over the Aqua, as well as the other components that will make up this amazing build, please note this isn't sponsored content. I've just managed to get my hands on a load of hardware that I've been desperate to play with, and it's all come together for this epic Ryzen 9 build. If it was sponsored content, I'd of course tell you, but it's not, and I'm free to do whatever the hell I want with this build, however I want. Now, getting back on track, let's quickly go over the Aqua. Right away, I can tell you this isn't a normal motherboard, and you can probably tell as much as it's dressed head to toe in silver coloured metal bits. It's a limited edition product, and just 999 of them have been made. As the name suggests, this is a liquid cooled board, so we have a big old monoblock that covers not just the CPU socket, but also the VRM and X570 chipset. Because of this, the board is extremely heavy, at least for a motherboard, tipping the scales at 2,650 grams. For context, the Gigabyte X570 Aorus Extreme, which is another very big, very heavy motherboard, it weighs exactly 1,000 grams less. In terms of features, it has everything you'd expect from a crazy overkill X570 motherboard. You get 10 gigabit LAN, Wi-Fi 6, Bluetooth 5, Thunderbolt 3, and a pretty high quality integrated audio solution. There's 3 full-length PCIe 4.0 slots, which are configured to run at x16 x8 x8, and then there's also 3 PCIe 4.0 x1 slots. There's 2 M.2 slots, 8 SATA ports, so the board offers plenty of expansion. As for the VRM, well, as I mentioned, it's liquid cooled, and under the block you'll find an IR35201 controller, and from it 6 signals are taken for the V-core portion, and then doubled using IR359 phase doublers. ASRock's using Infineon IR3555 60 amp power stages, and this is the same VRM configuration you'll find on their X570 creator board. So nothing too extreme, but it will certainly work well with the 3950X, particularly when liquid cooled. So that's really all that matters. These same power stages can be found on the MSI X570 Creation and Ace, as well as a few boards from Asus, which includes their flagship board, the Formula. It also comes on the Hero, E-Gaming, and then their workstation board, the WS Ace. Anyway, once I've completed the build and the 3950X is installed, I'll let you guys know how hot the VRM on the Aqua runs. That'll probably be in the final installment of this series. Apart from the Ryzen 9 3950X and the ASRock X570 Aqua, which I'm going to gently and carefully put down here, we have a boatload of Corsair bits and pieces, and yeah, just lots and lots of Corsair stuff. So very generous of them to spoil us with so much great hardware. And that's one of the reasons why I'm really excited to make this build. So we have the Carbide Series 678C case. I'll probably grab that in a minute. I'll show some B-roll of it. It is quite large, so not really any room to bring it over here. We have the case. We have the RM850X power supply. I'm not going to drop another radiator, am I? So I'll just bring that here. We have, where is it? We have, if I can find it. Uh-oh, don't tell me I've lost it. You don't, got it. We have a 2 terabyte PCIe Gen 4 SSD, the MP600. So 2 terabytes of storage there. That's almost enough to install all the games that we usually benchmark on the channel. So very handy that. 32 gigabytes of Dominator DDR4 memory. And then, well, yeah, HydroX bits. We've got pretty much all the HydroX parts we could possibly need and more. So much stuff that we couldn't possibly use them all in a single build, so I'll probably be setting up another test system and using some of the other blocks and things that we won't be able to feature in this video. Now, when I was planning out this build, I initially thought, well, we've got a $750 US CPU, or we will soon. We've got a $1,000 motherboard, and then an unknown price for all the liquid cooling bits, but you can be guaranteed that's going to add up to a pretty big dollar figure. So that means RTX 2080 Ti. Since we'll be putting a liquid cooling block on the graphics card, and this is an ultimate 3950X build, it doesn't really make sense to go with anything less than an RTX 2080 Ti, so we've got the $1,200 US Founders Edition model. Funny side story though, given how much you guys have been demanding Radeon RX 5700 XT content, I had wondered if you guys would rather see a Navi GPU plumbed into this build. So I created a poll on Twitter to help me decide which way I should go on this one. Unfortunately though, you guys weren't particularly helpful, and after around 2,500 votes, we ended up with a 50-50 split. Then, having seen the poll, Corsair raced over their XG7 RX series water block, just in case I wanted to go with a Radeon GPU, but I've decided against doing so, as a $400 graphics card really has no place in this build. I really expected the poll to heavily favour the RTX 2080 Ti, given the extreme higher nature of this build, but it seems there's a lot of love for the 5700 XT. Anyway, I'll still test out the RX series water block at a later date. Very keen to see how that works on the reference 5700 XT, and we even have an EK block to compare it with. So yeah, be good to do that. But of course, for this particular build, I'll be using their 20 series block, the one designed for the 2080 Ti FE model. Corsair also sent along a 10 series block, so again, won't be using that, but I'll probably provide some B-roll of it, and yeah, you guys can have a look. Corsair also sent along their XC9 block, so I've got that, but obviously we won't be using it for this build because the Aqua has a mono block, and they also sent along the CX7 RGB block as well. But yeah, as I said, we have a mono block on our motherboard, so we'll probably save them for a test system build that'll come a bit later down the track. At this point in time, Corsair offers just a single pump and reservoir option, so we'll be using the XD5 RGB pump/reservoir combo. As you'd expect, given the name, it uses the tried and true D5 PWM pump, which connects to a 330mm nylon reservoir, which features RGB lighting in the top plate. So I'm keen to see how this looks. For the radiators, Corsair sent along their 240mm and 360mm versions of their XR5 rads. These are 30mm thick models, but they also offer 54mm thick models as well in their XR7 range. Regardless of which version you purchase, all feature copper fins and can only be used with other copper/brass products. Then for the fans, we have two 3-packs of their ML120 fans, so that should provide us with plenty of airflow. Speaking of airflow, the 678C low noise case doesn't look as though it'll be all that breezy. The tolerances on the front panel look very tight, so I'm keen to test thermal performance once I finally get this thing built. The fact that the 3950X has been delayed really isn't a big deal, as these hard tube builds do take quite a bit of time to create, and now that I've showed off the components I can get building, which, as I said, I'm really excited to do. In part 2, we'll install the Aqua inside the 678C, I'll install the XG720 series block on the 2080 Ti, and then I'll start to plan out how I'm going to route all the tubing. If you have any suggestions for the build, feel free to drop them down below, because I won't start building for a few days yet, so any changes to the current plans or any additions, they can still be made. So yeah, if you have anything interesting to comment, do so below. But yeah, I'm genuinely excited to get building. I don't make this sort of content that often. It's usually just benchmark content and testing things, but yeah, it's always exciting when we get to create, I suppose, what you'd call a dream machine. Anyway, I hope you guys enjoy this build series. I'm your host, Steve. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you again next time.